Let's assume that I was at one company and making 200K.
Know what happened in college. So you went to University of Mumbai. Is it true or not?
Yeah, it is true. Everything on my CV is true. Uh,
You went
so
to
uh,
Georgia
like
Tech as well. Is that true as well?
it is. Was still embarrassed to say that this was my motivation for doing work at multiple places. And so what I instead told them is, I was very excited to build both the companies.
So hello everyone. Today we have Soham here, the most famous software engineer in the world and most famous, most talked about in Silicon Valley. You've been called everything from genius to a scammer. How do you introduce yourself to someone who has never heard about you?
I mean, I usually just say, hey, my name is Soham. I'm an engineer. There's this famous line from my email that went viral, like, I don't have a life. That's all I do all day. That's usually my go-to intro as well. Like, that's how I talk about myself in general. But yeah, I guess at this point, the moniker I'm using is everyone's favorite founding engineer. That's got me quite a Twitter attention. So yeah.
You are everyone's favorite, not just because of your hard work, dedication, and your amazing interview as well as coding skills, but also the hustle behind working for 3 to 4 jobs. What's the hardest you have ever worked on a project? Or
I
even
mean.
hardest you have worked in a week?
I mean, usually I was actually maximum at probably like two places at a time, but these startups are very small, right? So they require much more than your typical 9 to 5. You have to be generative. I was in most cases like the first engineering or the first few hires on the team. What that also meant is that we have to go beyond engineering to talk to customers. You have to like respond to incidents that happen at night. Like if there is an outage or something like that, you have to quickly attend to that. So I'd say in most cases I was either sleeping or working. This was my schedule. Maybe on a weekend, like once a month or a couple of times a month, I would have some time to go out and then spend with family or friends. But most of it was essentially just like, either of these two activities and maybe an hour of gym somewhere squeezed in the middle. Yeah.
Interesting. So at most you've only worked for 2 jobs at a time. Why everyone talks about 3 to 4?
I actually don't know. Like a lot of information went out there and it became so sensationalized that some people said, for some people, like some media outlets, very popular media outlets, said I worked at 20 places at one time and I had a dev shop. And so I think the nature of the topic itself is, we're living in a crazy times, right? Like companies are laying off people and there is a lot of like at least there's a lot of like visible difficulty in a job market. I wouldn't say that is the case. Like I think people should try to, talk to more startups and then they would know that that's not true. But there's still demand for, very skilled people. But I don't know. Like, I think it was the whole sensational nature of the topics and media outlets exaggerating that just kind of like, flooded one after the other. So,
And what about the claim 140 hours a week? Like,
so,
that's like
mm,
20 hours a day, every single day. Walk us through a day.
so basically, when I don't have any experience on going any podcast, I'm very camera shy. So, when this whole thing happened, the first thing that I did was I reached out to a founder friend of mine that I worked at previously. And I said, hey, how should I handle the situation? Because I was also not on Twitter, right? So I did not even know what a repost is and things like that. So he said, hey, just, make a public appearance. These people from TBPN had reached out. So, he said it's a good network to just go out and then tell your story and then it's up to the world to believe it or not, but at least you know people are not thinking that you're not real and you don't exist and you're just like sitting quiet. So that was what I did. And what happened is there was one, I don't know what, like a media source or something that claimed that, I worked like 140 hours, to get to where I was. And they've made a story behind my life. And so my personality as an individual is to keep things casual. Like, I like to keep it light. Like people around me that know me well, they will probably say this. And so I was trying to play on the situation that no one likes to work 140 hours, meaning like I was not working 140 hours but I was working crazy hours. I wasn't tallying, but mostly what I also don't sleep much. I sleep probably like 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes I go a day without sleeping, but it was essentially trying to say that there are crazy claims being made out of me, so no one likes to work that many hours, but I was working crazy hours. So it'd probably be like around 100 or something like that, like slightly more than 100, like but yeah.
Fascinating. I still want to know the details because, like, not as like, as like gaming the system, how you game the system that you're working in, two jobs, keeping yourself online. But I really want to know, how does a hyper productive day of a Soham Parekh looks like? Like
Mhm.
every day you have to be laser focused to have
Yeah.
something achieved like this.
So, I mean, I really like, these places I worked at. One of the reasons that I think people miss about me being able to, make through these interviews was the fact that I actually genuinely cared about the business model, what the vision could be down the line. I was very generative in terms of saying, hey, this is what we should do. These are the features we should build, which is, not like your typical engineering setup where someone's telling you do this and, like a product manager is saying, this is what you should do, and then you do that, or, spec out the entire feature for you and you're just like engineering or architecting it. And I think that actually helped me. A lot of people, get burnt out. I have had friends, or founder friends who have been, going crazy hard at it, and then they eventually end up burning out themselves out, and then they, started like something new, or they went on a short trip. With me, the thing is like I was very interested in all of these places. I keep saying this, that if there was a parallel universe where my financial circumstances were better, I would start my own company. Unfortunately for me, the risk appetite for starting a company and potentially not paying yourself is not something that I can go through right now. But I would have done that even if I was, working for a startup that I was building, right? And so it came very generatively, and that basically meant that each day of mine was very productive. We didn't have many meetings as a team, as a culture, maybe a stand up in most of these teams a day, or few days a week, not every day. Most of the updates were asynchronous in nature, and so there was little collision in terms of what you had to do. Obviously, each company had a day crazy deadline, like you had to push really hard in getting features implemented. But that was something that I that would be my goal of the day. Like if I have starting my day, at least these are the things that I want to ship, or at least try to ship, and then see how much of it I am able to do. Yeah.
Interesting. So you said you were on the verge of not burning out when the whole teammates around you were burning out. Why is that? Why you were like so passionate, of course, but why you didn't feel like you are the one burning out, but your teammates are burning out?
I mean, I think it just comes from how you perceive what you do. I think a big factor of it was probably the fact that I was remote, which means there was no travel or anything as such involved in me, like commuting. Like that also adds to your fatigue, right? Like it is really fun to work in person. I actually love being in offices. And when I was in the US, like, and on these offsites, I would not leave the office for many days. And the thing is, like, I was at, for example, I was at Sync and we had a gym nearby. And so I would just go to the gym for shower and everything, and I'll just come back again in the office. That's what I've done for like 4 days in a row. And so people would question like, "Hey, have you ever left the office?" And I was like, "No." But the thing is, like, it just comes from interest, right? Like there is always something that is coming out new with AI, or in the field that I was in, and what that meant is you have to like constantly learn. It's not like you're doing the same thing every day. And that actually helped a lot. The fact that you have to pretty much be a student every day. Like there's a new research paper going out. There's this new crazy thing happening in one field or the other. I think that was a massive a lever for me, because the thing with me also is that if it becomes too monotonous, it becomes difficult for me. It's not like it's, I won't do it. Like obviously I will, but it is much more self inspired if everything that we're building is kind of not it's like off its kind. It's not like something that people have already in the wild, which was true for a lot of these companies. So yeah.
Love what you do. You were very passionate about it. You treated the companies you were working at as your own company, the changes you wanted to bring. Number two, you had like a system around you which felt balanced, whether it's working from home or whether just like going to gym and just being in the place where you are at. And number three would be that you had a life without distractions. Why is that?
So I am
How?
not on in So I'm not on any
Uh-huh.
social media platforms. Like I was there on Facebook years back, and that account is like obviously no one uses Facebook anymore. I had Instagram for some time, and then I stopped using it. And Twitter, I was never on Twitter. So basically, I did not have any. I'm also very camera shy. Right? Like I don't like posting faces my pictures and anything in general. I have like 5 pictures in total. So yesterday I did a podcast on Indian startups, and the guy asked me for a thumbnail, and it took me like 2 hours. And at the end, he was like, just ask your friend to take one, and even that took time. So. That's the thing about me. I don't have any things outside of this that potentially could drain away my time. And I think that actually helped a lot in a lot of these things. Like I, do read a lot of books and comics and things like that, and so that was my only major drain of time. Like like spending on a comic, and comic was also interesting. Like I used to watch TV shows, and they were taking 24 minutes, and a book equivalent I can read in like 5-10 minutes because a chapter comes out once a week. So that's how I actually hacked into the system as well. I was like, I care about the story. I don't really care about, the animation. I can watch that at leisure. So I would just like try to plug into ways where I can just save more and more time. But candidly, I think it got a pattern where and I'm not making this up. Like, I no matter what I do, like if I'm taking a break, which is a part that I'm trying to change actively, I would still keep thinking about, oh, this is what I have to do, or this is what's my, this is what I have to build, this is what I can do, and that became very difficult for people around me because I would spend time with someone and my head would be somewhere else, and that's not fair to them. So that's one thing that like it did have implications on my other areas of life, which luckily now I'm like learning the bitter lesson that that is also important. But that's basically how like it was very difficult for me to do anything else, pretty much because of the way my life was structured.
Interesting. I want to dig deeper. What makes Soham Parekh? So, can you describe your life? Like, when did you learn to code? How you became a nerd?
So I was not very athletic in school. I grew up in Mumbai. A lot of my friends, we had like a basketball team in school, and a lot of people were doing track events and things like that. I tried a lot of these things. I was really bad at it, and so that is one thing I realized is okay, maybe athleticism is not for me. And then what happened is when I was in my I think the last 2 years of schooling, like ninth and the 10th grade, we got options to take electives, and the electives were interesting. There was like physical education, like arts and economics and things like that. So I just followed the process of elimination. I was like, okay, this is not going to be me. This is not going to be me. What am I left with? And that turned out to be computer applications is what the subject was called. They taught us Java for 2 years, which is funny. That's the language I'm like terrified to work on now. But that was my venture into coding. It was not like, oh, I was fascinated by computers and my dad got me one. Like, no, it was basically we didn't even have a laptop back at home. So all the work that I did on the computers was actually in my school. We had a computer that they provided, like a mini. They had this. I don't know, like a suite of laptops. That was like extremely small. They had Intel Atom chips. So not very powerful to do gaming or anything as such. Um, and that's kind of how I started with it. And obviously, once I started with it, I realized that this is crazy that someone can pay me to do this. Like it felt like a game to me, like that I can code and it's so fun. And then it's also happens to be a career choice that people make. So I felt like a sports person, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's what they feel as well. But and then so after that, I kind of started self-teaching myself. I wanted to learn deeper about how like computers function in general. So I started with C. I have an elder sister. She was in ML research. So then I
Mhm.
came across like, oh, there's this world where computers can behave like humans. And I think that is where, it got it like I got nerd snapped basically. I was like, okay, I want to learn everything about computers that I can in one life. And which is why, right now, like my life is so weird. Like I obviously, code. I'm at a company called Darwin, and we do infrastructure. I do infrastructure and front end and back end and everything for them. And then there's also this part of me which is, reading research papers and trying to tinker with, fine tuning models or trying to build GPU kernels. And so basically, I'm like all over the place. It's not like this is my specialization. Like I want to learn everything that is in existence because everything is just so crazy exciting for me. Like it's just this is like something I can do like the entire time. So that's kind of how my life evolved after when I went to college. And the luckiest thing that happened to me was COVID. Like 2 years of COVID, we did not have college, so we did not have to go physically, and that was a blessing. Like in that 2 years, I did summer of code programs. I mentored at different places. I did this fellowship, open source fellowship with GitHub and Facebook, which were very cool in their own rights because they were things that I had not worked with before. And I also did a lot of research papers. I built a small prototype for a company I wanted to build back then. So all in all, like I think that is how like my life evolved. And after that, once I got into startups, I got to do that every day. It was more like a necessity than a nice to have. And so yeah.
So in your high school, you dug deep into C in school. While working in school, you did not have a computer. And then now I want to know about the college you went to. So let's go to your resume.
CV doesn't have all experiences, it has curated experiences. That was basically depending on what company I was interviewing at. Like I would think about, oh, is this work relevant to them? And if it was, I would put it there. Uh, so
Interesting.
which is I was saying that this is a little bit different.
Know what happened in college. So you went to University of Mumbai. Is it true or not?
Yeah, it is true. Everything on my CV is true. Uh,
You went
so
to
uh,
Georgia
like
Tech as well. Is that true as well?
it is. It was an online program that I'd applied for, and then I never went. The thing is, it was like left on my CV because I was using the same CV everywhere. It's very recently that I started, like actually modifying my CV, but I was using the same template for a very long time. And at that time, I had enrolled in like an online Dev OMSCS program. And so during the interviews, I would clarify to people that, hey, like, I mean, most people actually did not even point out. They didn't care where I'd come from or what my education was, which was very interesting. I think this was very different for American startups than the Indian startups, is that they never asked about my college or what I did there or anything as such. Like, they didn't care about what college I came from because most people that are founders are dropouts, right? Like they themselves have not gone to colleges, or believe in. I'm not saying everyone should do that, but they kind of understand that there is more to it than the college that you come from, and so like it never came up in the conversation, and so I never got it. But basically, I never went to grad school. I applied for grad school in 2021. That has been the year when I, like actually started considering masters. Did not go that year, because of COVID and everything being remote. And then 2022, I had some financial circumstances where I could not afford to go to grad school. And so what happened is the company then that I was working for, they said that if you want to do an online master's, we will pay it for you. So that, Georgia Tech's master's costs like 10K, basically. And I thought, okay,
All
this
right.
is good for me because I can work. I did not want to, leave being at a startup. Like I basically the thinking that was going in my head was that what do I expect to get out of, like my grad school? And for a lot of people in India, like it's just a entry into the American job market, right? Like being very candid, a lot of people
Correct.
don't really have much that they learn in the grad school from what they've already known. And so in my head, I was already working for a company that was based out of California. There wasn't a real incentive to do grad school at all. And so it was very difficult to commit 80 hours to that startup I was working at. They were struggling actually to get any revenue in. And so I was working very, crazy there. And then, the master's was also like some time commitment, even though it was kind of, I don't know the word, executive or, not full time, basically part
Correct.
time. And so I ended up not doing that either. So basically, I never went to grad school. The University of Mumbai is the only education I've had.
Got it. So the dates you make up for Georgia Tech 2020 to 2022 is false. We can say that you knew all the concepts you were learning from Georgia Tech, but you did not go there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not false. That would have been my year if I would have gone, which is why I put it in the CV just so that I could have conversations with people I was interviewing that, hey, I am
Uh-huh.
doing a part-time master's program. A lot of it was also immigration reasons. Like I was applying for an O1A visa, and what I was told by the lawyers then is that if you have an advanced degree, it actually helps in your criteria, which also was false because I had other criteria in, I mean, lawyers differ, right? Like you might talk to a lawyer and then you might talk to a different law firm and their takes are fully different from each other. And so that was also one of the reasons where I was considering a master's program is because, and the whole reason the entire conversation materialized was because of my immigration. I did want to eventually settle in the US, and the company I was working at that time was like, hey, like we have two options. There is H1B and there is O1. H1B is a lottery-based system, and there is a possibility that that never strikes through. And they also had L1 because they were having an entity in India. And so what the recommendation of the lawyers was is, with my profile, like you can try for a O1 because you have a research background, you've done open source, you've worked at startups as a founding engineer. So there's a lot of like criteria that I was already able to meet just from that fact. Uh, yeah, but I think the only thing that is inconsistent is that I never went to college. I did apply, that would have been my year, but I also don't pay attention to education because once it's there, like it's there, right? Like I mostly what's more important to me was like everything else in the mix, the work that I did at these places and things like that. Uh, yeah.
Got it. Okay, now let's talk about your work experience. 2020, you graduated. I want to know about what companies you have done internship to, all the companies you've worked at, because there's so many they have been quoted. Anti-Metal, Playground, Lindy AI, Dynamo AI, Union AI, Synthesia AI, Allen AI, Comfy UI, and so many. So let's start with order of work experiences from 2016 till now.
So I did a few internships at big tech. It was like Amazon and things like that. That was when I was in India. And then after that, I joined a company called Better Finance. It was a YC startup. They were I'm good friends with founders there. They called Better Banking back in the day. And then they named it to Better Finance, but it was an insurance tech slash fintech startup, like intersection of the two. I was, an intern, but kind of like a founding intern slash engineer. It was a weird role because I was in college at that time when I started working for them. And like I said, COVID was a blessing for me in a lot of ways. One of the reasons it was a blessing is because I was able to work at a startup and actually see what it takes to build slash,
Mhm.
that is an ambition I had. Like I wanted to potentially start my own company at that time. And so I, built a lot of things there. Basically, we did a beta launch and to some of our internal customers, and we realized that we don't have market fit. This company was pre-market fit, I would say I think they had probably like a small round from YC because they went through YC, but it was before YC was 500K, like giving out 500K. So, uh, yeah, like it was a very cash crunch situation. But I learned, a lot there. I think I learned like 4 or 5 years worth of engineering. I'm not even kidding. We were connecting to people's bank accounts, dealing with financial transactions and things like that. So I was like, okay, working at startup is insanely cool because you can basically be a founder yourself if you're early enough in the team, but not have to do all the administrative things, right? That typical founders do. So that was my first founder experience. After that, I joined a company called Allen, which built conversation assistant. At this time, like I was not having any financial issues. I was working at one place only at one time. The
Uh-huh.
way Allen came to be is they used to sponsor a lot of hackathons in Mumbai. And I mean, not Mumbai, but like India in general, and they were in conversational assistant sphere. That is something that I did somewhat my undergrad research in, like natural languages and entity recognition and like it's crazy like how far we've come from there to now in the space. But that's kind of what I was interested in and spoke to founders there. We had a good synergy. There was just me and the CTO, and then we had some engineers in Russia and in the US, but they were mostly like customer support people. And so a lot
Uh-huh.
of tooling, like in-house synthetic data pipelines, infrastructure, building models, a lot of this is what I did there. Um, Alan actually did not was struggling with revenue numbers, to be very candid with you. And so what was happening is that we weren't sure which direction the company is going towards, and that is when I joined, Synthesia basically, right, which is a company which was doing deepfakes. They were in a new market. I was very excited by what they built. And that is also when my financial trouble started to occur. And so this was, 2022 basically. And so at that point in time, I was seeing the surroundings around me, and I don't talk to many people much. So I started, kind of like saying, "Hey, I want to be able to do something about it. I want to be able to, like have, like some way to pull myself and family out of situations." And so I start, the thing that I thought is, okay, if I am able to work at two places, I can, by the way, these people, like, Synthesia was not paying great salary, like it was not SF salary, right?
Really?
So when people say that, hey, I've made 800 k a year. I don't know where it came from because not everyone paid US salary. And sometimes, founders have told this in the YC thread, the original YC thread was posted that I was oddly late at giving invoices, and like some people, they reached out saying, "Hey, we want to pay you." I didn't even reply. That is true, right? Like this is also what founders that I've actually worked with have said. So I don't know where this 800K number comes from. I would have not had financial issues if that was true, but yeah, like so that then I started working at a company called Command Bar, which they're acquired by Amplitude now. And I did a lot of work for both of these companies. I made very good relationships with the engineers at Synthesia that I was working with. In general, I think I did a lot of work for both of them. It's just the fact that I kept that I was working at multiple places that actually ended up hitting it. So what happened is we had a contract designer at
Uh-huh.
Command Bar that ended up joining Synthesia, and that is how it came to surface that so he was working at a different company in Europe, and that company laid off a lot of people, including him as well. And so for a while he was working at Command Bar for a contractor, but he wanted to still be in Europe. Command Bar was remote first, so they didn't really care much. Um, and then he was hired to be at Synthesia for some time, and in that conversation, it came out that I was working at two places. I got founders from Synthesia reached out to Command Bar founders, and then they candidly asked me that what is going on here, because I did do a lot of, like I said, like I did do a lot of meaningful work that they have said that, right, and so the I was still embarrassed to say that this was my motivation for doing work at multiple places. And so what I instead told them is, I was very excited to build both the companies, and I did not want to pick one. And so that is why I chose both of them, which was, also like partly true, but the main reasoning was that I had, trouble financially, and I did not want to like admit it in front of them, just because of the embarrassment around it. Like I grew up in India, right? Like in India, there is some like I don't know what the right word is, but there is like some sort of like taboo to admitting that you're struggling effectively, right? Because society and we care about that, and that what forms our opinion of the world. And so that's basically what happened. Um, After that, I joined Antimetal. I was a founding engineer there. I was at Antimetal for 2 years. Uh,
Wait, wait, wait. So before anti-metal, so this was the first time you worked for two jobs at the same time, and you got caught because one engineer did the same move that you did and reported to the founders. Founders had the discussion. And what was the conclusion when you got caught? A command bar
yes.
and Synthesia. You were passionate for both, though, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what happened is uh, again, I'm trying to remember as accurately as possible. This designer that we had, that actually was contracting at Command Bar and went to join, Synthesia. He basically might have spoken to a PM on the team, and then like at that point in time, there was some discussion of me moving to Europe permanently and things like that, which was becoming difficult because of like the trouble back home. And so what ended up happening is I was actually in the US at that time. I was visiting my sister, if I remember correctly, and uh, you know I got a message from my engineer colleague at Synthesia, that hey, can you like chat next morning tomorrow? And I think they would. The thing is, they wanted to put this situation in front of me and see if I was candid about it or not. And like I said, they were not unhappy with the work I had done there. They were actually I built a lot of meaningful features for them. Um, and so, when this whole thing happened, I was like, okay, maybe it's just another general meeting, because the GP3 had come out, so I had a lot of ideas around it, so we were trying to experiment a lot with it. And so I thought maybe it's a discussion around, that. And US morning is European afternoon, right? So it's not like a crazy odd hour. Uh, and so I joined the call, and then on the call, like there was that engineer, there was which by the way I'm like very good friends with, still. There was the the I don't know head of engineering or something like that. We were a very small team, so there was no hierarchy as such. And there was obviously one of the founders on the team, and they said that, hey, look, we've come to know that you've worked at multiple places. So, like, what are your reasonings about it, and what do you want to say about it? And obviously, I said what I told you, which is, oh, I was very confused. I don't didn't know which started, but which in my hindsight, like, if I would have been honest and I would have told them that this is what my circumstances were, they would have probably understood it. They're also human after all. But this obviously is hard to digest, right? Like, what does this even mean? Like, does this mean you don't believe in us? Like, I don't know what their thinking was. This is probably what I am thinking. But basically, whatever I told them did not equate to a very reasonable explanation, right? Like, you say, oh, like I wanted to build at two places or earn more money. Like, I don't know what their thinking was, but then, at that point, then they decided that, like, obviously, when something like this comes up, you as a founder are also entitled to answer everyone else, right, on the team. And so if I come out with this and I say, hey, I'm working at multiple places and maybe I'm excused, then you are accountable for answering to everyone else, like like that is, I think, my thinking. Okay, I don't know about what their thinking was, and I think that is probably what happened with Command Bar. Later that day, they were in Pacific, so I was in New York at that time. The morning came out, and one of the co-founders, that James, reached out, and he's like, hey, we got message from this founder at Synthesia. He said you were working there as well, and like, we should talk about it. And then we spoke about it, and I think the same thing was their conclusion too. It's essentially more like, I think, like, I have the email as well with the thread on them. Like, basically they were like, it's disappointing for us because you did a lot of good work here, and we would have loved if you were in one place, but then because you are in two places, it makes it difficult for us to, like, talk to someone else. And like, if they knew that this was the premise, then everyone would know that, oh, Soham is at two places, he's not exclusively working with us. But the fact that people and other engineers on the team think that I was, at exclusively at that startup, I think was something that is hard to explain to people. And especially in that time where I think the world was going through this great resignation or whatever, right? Like, some movement was going on. It was very hard to, like, have people be in the team and bought in fully. So this is what my understanding of their reasons was. If I was in person, that would have been a different story, because then they would see me every day and they would have some faith in, okay, this is what the situation is. But yeah, this is what happened.
So, what ended up happening? Like, you got like one opportunity, or you had to leave both?
So luckily at
At
that
the
time
end.
I was talking to Antimetal, the founders at Antimetal. I was very interested in what they were building because they were in the infrastructure space, and so like, they had a launch in a few months, and so I joined Antimetal as a founding engineer after this. This is what ended up happening,
So
and
you left both
the
and you
founders at
joined
Anti
Antimetal. Okay.
yeah, and the founders at Antimetal actually knew that this is what had happened in the past when I joined. So yeah.
There's so much honesty in your journey that people don't even know about. Like, you have been honest in majority of your journey. So what happened after Antimetal? You were a founding engineer. What? How did it go? What happened after that? Where did you work?
So, like, anti-metal, I was obviously exclusive to anti-metal for some time after all of this happened. And I did a lot of crazy work. I'm best friends with the founders. I actually spoke to him yesterday on WhatsApp. We talk every day. Like, there was this whole funny thing where a lot of our like a lot of our internal Slack messages are like, just like, it's hilarious for people around to watch us, like, talk to each other, because we are like a very weird combo. The CTO and me, and so I was good friends with all the founders that they felt like, family to me in some sense. But again, like, it's a workplace, and I again had this mental barrier to share my financial troubles with them. So for a very long time, I actually did not tell them that this is what the reason was for me working in multiple places. I also told them the same thing. I wanted to work here, I wanted to work there, and so and they actually thought that was the case, because I like they can statuses. I've had a crazy journey at Antimatter. Like the thing is, we've done launches in such a brink of time, and the engineering bar was so high. Like in the 2 years I was there, we didn't hire a single engineer. Our team mostly remained the same number of engineers, and so we were like 5-person team. Like if you would tell someone like, oh, Antimatter just like 5-person team, like it would blow people's mind. I've met a lot of people, a lot of other founders, in the process. We did 2 launches, we did Tech Week and everything. So I was there for good 2 years. But I joined Antimetal kind of remote. I was working from India, 2-3 months, down the line with the launch and everything. And then obviously my situation had not changed, right? The truth is, even if I would have worked for two places, it would not change the financial situation at home. I was just making enough, a little bit lesser than enough to basically, like able to pay, like month to month. I don't want to say more about it because this will probably become public and people will hear about it. But um, like I was still in a bad situation as a net, right? I was still making lower than what I should have been making. And so there was a lot of pressure internally that I had accumulated on myself. And so I started working there for some time. And then, like 2-3 months pass, obviously I'm like doing worse now. So in my head, again, the same thing started to happen is like, okay, like this is getting worse. Like, what should I do? What can I do? And the thing is, I think one thing that TBP and people asked me is you can just ask for 300K or something like that crazy salary. And I don't think I'm worth 300K, right? Like, this is what I thought back then as well. Like, one, like I have been at early startups before, which were, like I said, they were struggling with market fit, they were struggling with revenue. So one thing that I did understand is that a startup can give you a lot of equity, but anytime they are paying you, like in the premium, they are actually reducing the runway effectively. Like salaries are a huge expense for a lot of these startups, right? Um, and so I felt like they were already letting go a lot of factors. The fact that I was, in India, the fact that they were okay with me working anytime, even though I was always in the same time zone as they were, like I tried to be in Pacific and I tried to be around at all times. But the fact that they were okay to make an exception, I think made me feel that, I would be asking a lot if I also on top of this came and said, hey, give me like a crazy salary figure. And so I just, in a lot of these places, when they give you offers, they give you in ranges, right? I've always taken the lesser salary, more equity kind of an offer, even though the equity was not meaningful to me because I wouldn't get that equity until I was in the US. Like the conditions for these equities were that you have to be in the US because there is this whole thing of NSO, ISO, and you pay like a premium tax in India, like capital gains, like 40% something. And so a lot of people, and it's also easier for the cap table, like because you can't really like easily give equity to contractors, which is what I was hired in these places as. And so like the equity wouldn't even vest until I was in the US. Some people agree to backdate. So in general, like it's counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. But I did have some part of me which was like, okay, like I will give my best at these places or try to give my best at these places and try to be more than an engineer for them. Do like, uh, do a lot of thinking ahead for timeline and roadmaps and things like that. But that's when I started contracting at a different company for a very short period of time. The thing is, it was a stealth startup. They were building like this extension for Chrome that
Hmm.
is very similar to a Perplexity, interestingly. So if they would have stuck to that idea, it would have, I think, gone crazy. Um,
What is it called? The startup?
they used to be called Layer. Um, that was the
Ah.
name, but they never became public. Like they were, in beta for a very long time, and we were trying to build in beta. And the thing is, like, the founders that wanted to for me to come in person and again, like anti-metal obviously knew after some point in time that I was at Layer as well. But I was doing good work. Like I said, the thing is, they did not care as long as I was doing good work. After that, like, I think I joined. I don't remember the timelines because timeline is very fuzzy. Because the thing is, like, in a lot of these places, this is also what a lot of people miss is during the onboarding, if it would come out that I was at multiple places, they would not want to work because if you're a new founder, right? Like if you know me less than a few weeks, right? Like less than a week, even like in the first onboarding, and then somehow are, faced with this fact that I am at multiple places, you wouldn't be very comfortable, right? Like you would have to take a faith on your judgment and just, see that, oh, like maybe this is not bad. And this is actually what happened with Playground and Suhail. So there were two things that happened actually. The first thing was, I was in India at that time, and the one of the conditions with being employed, which is also one thing that I don't really understand why it came out to be this way. Like someone said that I lied about my location, and I did not. Like the conditional for me to turn full time at these places was that I have to figure out my US immigration. I wouldn't say that I have work authorization if I don't, right? Like I don't want to get to jail. Also, I did not violate any laws in the US. I was very strict about it because like if you end up doing it, I want like I was applying for an O1, like I said, I was preparing for my profile for it. So the last thing I wanted to do was jeopardize even that, right? Like a longer term plan to actually come to the US. And so I was not doing anything illegal in terms of working without authorization or something like that. But the thing is, he had some misalignment with where I was, and we hardly worked for like 5 days. Like if you consider like 7 days a week, 5 days is how much I spent with them. I also did not get paid by Suhail or Playground, so I don't know why all the friction is coming. But one thing that ended up happening is, so this is what happened. Basically, when I was deleting the code from my computer, um, there were just folders of, like folders of contract copies that I had made in my computer of the previous startups. Just because it's for accounting, like, when you show taxes in India, you have to show the contracts since I was a contractor. And, I obviously shared my screen and he saw the names. And I think this is what happened. He just misunderstood that I'm at all places. Like I have a hierarchy of how I maintain my documents on the computer. And so I think what happened is he just saw these names and he just assumed that I was working at these places. And so
Interesting.
even the companies before that I was working with, he said, "Oh, like he thought that I was doing this at multiple places at the same time," which was not true. So I don't know. I'm again guessing that this is what might have happened. But like he, reached out to all the previous founders and said, "Hey, he was working at Playground when he was with and when he was with you, or something like that," which was not true. And so I think maybe that is where the narrative of 3 to 5 places comes from. But I was not at three to yeah.
For example, you contributed to open source community for Comfy UI, but they coded you, you have worked for Comfy UI as well. So
Yeah,
that's
I have
how
no
it was.
I have no invoice copies. Like I would love for these people to actually come and say that, hey, we have paid Soham. And also when I was at Comfy, I had a medical emergency. And so I was candid with them. And when we were having these conversations, they have not even like I have not invoiced them at all. A lot of these companies that are saying that, like if I did work for a place, like even Create, right? Like I have never invoiced them. Like they never paid me. So and it was like in the first week of onboarding, like, in a week, like you hardly know a person, right? Like I cannot know someone in 5 days. Like, at least if the mistake that I made and that I admit to is that uh, I did not tell them that I was at multiple places. And that is a huge mistake, right? Like, giving a startups because they're very small and the ethics of the earlier members of the team actually matter a lot. I should have went and told them that I'm at, working at multiple places simultaneously. That's the only mistake I made. But these places, like, there's a company called Browser Use. uh, it's crazy. The founders posted a screenshot that there's a website that is supposedly like tracking all the places I worked at, and it mentioned that I worked at Browser Use for 2 weeks. Again, a lie, because one, they never paid me. I would love for the founders to come and show an invoice where they've paid me. Two, they wanted me to come to Indonesia at my own expense, which was not possible because we were having this scuffle with Pakistan, and I was in Mumbai, and the airspace and everything, the flights were getting delayed. You had to reach airport like 4 hours before. Personally, I was paranoid because when I was in the US, like a friend of mine literally, was going to Canada, and the airline topple happened. Where one airline was, like landing and it went apart. There was another one which, like two airlines, one in Brazil and the other one, like they kind of, also fell. Like all Boeing thing was going on. So in general, like I was very paranoid with like traveling in a situation where there is a kind of a war-like situation, right? And so again, they did not pay me anything. I would love to. I did a lot of good work for them, which is also crazy. And by the way, browser uses open source. So my work you can go and see, like you can actually go to the repository and see, oh, this is what I've committed. Like the reason they wanted to interview me even to begin with was because I got this extremely weird edge case that they were struggling with for months, right? And so it's all very weird to me that they come out and then they say all this. And obviously, I don't have credentials. And I'm a very non-conflict person. Like I don't care. As long as people around me know. So I didn't say anything. Even, there's a company called Leaping, and I'm good friends with the founders there, by the way. We've spoken on chat, and he's
Uh-huh.
admitted to this on the platform as well. But this is the drone screenshot, if you might have seen, right? So what actually happened is I was in Mumbai. We were given an orange alert. I don't know what that means, but maybe. And Mumbai has had a history of terrorist attack, and I have had, like relatives or people I've known who just barely evaded the situation, right? Like a day away from the actual incident. Like if there would be a day, ahead, they would have been in that situation. So in general, like I was very, paranoid with all that was going on here, and there was a lot of rumors. And like I said, I'm not a social media person, so I don't have the ability to say what is true and what is not. My whatever is in front of me is either the news channel that what they show, which I assume they fact verify, which I've realized they don't. Uh, or it's something that someone that I really trust tells. And so I was at a friend's house. He lives in Fort, which is south of Mumbai, very close to the CST station where the attack happened. And
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden, we had a power outage for 3-4 hours. We had no power. And so after the third hour, I messaged this guy in this founder, and I told him that, hey, I think that we have issues with power, but this is what they're saying. Someone actually put out a message to take advantage of the situation, I guess, that a drone was captured nearby, and that's why we are like, there was a power gone all of a sudden because they created a quote unquote blackout, right? And I was like, and this is also a part which is missed. I actually huddled after this. I did a huddle with him on Slack, and I told him that this makes no sense to me. Like I'm in Mumbai, everything's happening in in the north. Like if it were to come as far as Mumbai, then this is like a full blown war. So I don't think either of the countries are stupid enough to take that move. But then you never know, right? Like what do you know? So I told all of this to him, but the thing is, it's on a huddle, and he has admitted to it, and also they also did not pay me because he asked multiple times. He's like, "Do you want to get paid at all?" And I was like, I don't think the work I've done is, something that I should be paid for because, frankly, I had some health issues, and this war situation was going on, and so I was candid with him. I was like, hey, I don't think that I should be paid for it. Let's do one thing, like, once all of this is a little bit calmer, after that, once I start, I can start like properly working, and after that, we can figure out the whole payment thing. So this is what happened. So a lot of people are saying I made money, I did it for money. It's just lie. Like I don't know like why it's being said in this way or told in this way. But
Interesting.
yeah,
So, what was this company name?
it's called leaping.
Leaping. Can you spell it?
It is leaping like leap of faith or leaping, like leaping
Leaping.
AI.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Leaping year. Okay,
yeah.
so let's continue quickly with the timeline. So, what I've learned from you so far is you did not care about the money. You kept the salary the lowest and equity the highest, even if you knew that you will never get the equity because you're not going soon enough to the US. There's a possibility you're going to the US soon if they give you O1, but you did choose the worst possible payment package for you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sometimes sometimes unbelievable. So I want to know. So this is we are in 2022, 2023 now with Leaping, right? And you're
No,
working
no.
for
Leaping was recent. Leaping was very recent. It was
so
2025. 2025.
2025. So Leaping was when okay. So Leaping we come to very recent now. And what about the other companies at the time, like Union AI, Dynamo AI, Synth?
So Union and Dynamo was together. Dynamo
Uh-huh.
was a place where I was a contractor. To be honest, we were doing like a work trial arrangement with each other, but for a little longer period of time. They were not paying US great salary, by the way. Also, there were months I did not get paid there either. Union was also not paying US grade. They were, paying good for India, but not like 200K or something like that. It was less than half of that. And then and so these two companies I started working at the same time, and main reason for leaving Union was more kind of like I think I joined them as a very excited engineer because of what they were doing, but I was having a lot of trouble actually like working with them because they had an engineer who was in Europe, sorry, who was in Australia actually, that they let go. So the team was becoming very transient. Every individual that I had interviewed on the panel was not there when I joined, and so I just it was very difficult for me to like actually make any relationships with people. I was not actually like enjoying being there. And so I was still doing, the work that I could. I was trying to like, give quote unquote like my best again because it's not every time that you're working at a company you're going to like it, right? Like, and I have that muscle in me that I will have to do things which I don't like. That's the hard. That's the part about startups that you have to be used to it, right? It's just that I was not able to like make relationships with people either while I was working. And I think it was getting very difficult for me. Like it was very transient. I was getting very nervous that, oh, if this is happening across, number wise also, I think we were not doing that well. If I remember, like the company was way bigger than a typical company of that size. There was a lot of chaos around, the functioning and things like that. And so TLDR there is that, Dynamo was like as a contractor and Union was also as a contractor, but both of these places were essentially the reason I left was not because of like working at multiple places or something as such. It's just we didn't have the mutual alignment in terms of
I see.
what.
You didn't get caught. You didn't get caught, but you just didn't have the alignment. Interesting. And that this Dynamo and Union was in 2024.
This was in 2020, 2024, 2024,
Uh-huh.
2023, 2024.
Okay. What else we're missing in the journey?
So, I mean, between 2024 and now, obviously I've interviewed at a lot of these places. And a lot of these places I've done work trials at. Again, not employed, very clear work trial, which most of these are unpaid, right? And so, like, there are several companies I reached out to. I was very selective. Like, I know the volume is higher, but that's also because, not everyone is going to reply. Like, I was not thinking that people would reply to my messages. And actually, that was true. Like, maybe 10 emails, one company would reply. But the thing is, I did read a lot about what they were doing. I knew the industries well. Like you have some intersection with some other company, right? Like not as a competing thing, but more kind of like, oh, we are selling to a customer and that customer is in this industry. So I know what they do well and I know the potential is. And like I said, if there was a world where I had better financial circumstances, I would be a founder. So a lot of other places that I've interviewed at and did work trials with, but between 2024 and 2025, I was at Sync Labs, which does real-time lip syncing. Yeah, and they have there I was there for a good amount of time until this year, in Feb, and now I'm at Darwin, which is where I'm like fully committed to. I've been very candid about the fun. Actually, the funny part is he taught me how to use Twitter. Like I did not know how to use Twitter at all. So when all of this happened, I was like, hey, this is what this guy is saying. What should I do? He's like, leave it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to like respond to every single person that is saying something about you? That's not going to happen, right? Like, just do what you can, like, in terms of making public appearances, tell people your side of story, obviously tell that you're not proud of what you've done because that is true. Like I was talking to him about it and I was talking to a few founders of mine. I was like, if only I'd taken like the correct path, that would have been a different story. And they're like, what's done is done. Like you can't change it. You can either benefit from the traction you're getting and leverage it into your advantage, or you can just air your dirty laundry and just do nothing with it. And so the realization I've had is that I have a all these things did happen, but they could have happened in more private. They happened in public, which means I got to tell my side of the story, which I'm very grateful for. I think it's just fate or something, right? Like I don't know how nature works, but the fact that at least there are people who will, you know, again, I can't control what people believe. There are things people won't believe. Like only I know what the truth is. But at least it gave me a platform to actually like tell people what my sort of story is. And also, I love startups. I absolutely love startups and businesses and things like that. And so, for a very long time, the friction was that it was out of my comfort zone to actually make public appearances and talk about it more openly. But now that it's already happened and people know me, it's made me much less conscious about it. So a lot of things that I was planning to do but never did because of just like fear of facing the public has now gone, which means like there's a lot of things I'm have in the works that I want to do, more kind of just because I'm passionate about founders and how they come up with ideas, how they think, out of the box. And so, yeah, like that's something that I'm thinking about. But yeah, this is essentially what has happened so far.
Interesting. And we all know what happened recently. It was a similar situation. They saw one engineer reported and the founder after founder reported it, right?
Yeah.
At what companies? The latest was which two companies that when you got
So,
like exposed?
so yeah, so it was a company called Lindy and BEM. And the thing is like they actually uh, saw the Twitter, like it wasn't because of the work that I did. Like Lindy, I just recently joined, like, few days back, basically, and I spent like less than a week, like less than 2 weeks with them. And I did do good work. I was very good relationship with the engineers on the team, and I had really good time with them. Flo is an investor at Antimetal, actually. So
Oh, that's
I don't know if yeah, but he went on the air and he said something about me running a dev shop, which honestly I felt a little sad about because I thought that we had a good relationship dynamic just because he was an investor in Antimetal. And that's what he told me. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, like a lot of it is true. Like I said, I'm not saying people are lying. People are true about it. And I'm grateful it came out in the public. But there's a lot of lies too. And it just bothers me that people make these claims without fact checking and like it just feels terrible, right? Like that's not true. I did not scam anyone. Like I the only mistake I did was like I mean maybe you can consider that as a scam, I don't know, but I worked at multiple places at the same time, which now I'm finding out like a lot of people do and a lot of companies are okay with it. So that's not what I want to do. Like I'm
yeah.
at Darwin, um and I'm fully committed to them, but uh yeah, like it is what it is.
So how did you get up? How did you end up at Darwin? Did you apply, or did they reach out to you, or they trusted your vision and your hard work? How did it happen?
So, we've done like some sort of discussions around what they should be building, and I think Sanchit has seen what I can build. Like, even the funny part is that, or it's not funny, but the interesting part is that a lot of places I did work at in the past, they did reach out and said if I wanted to rejoin them, um, because now they knew that I would be at one place only because of what happened, more so because of the circumstance. And so they're like, oh, if we can have Soham like 100%, like that's going to be, I don't know what the thinking was, like maybe good for us, like or something like that, right? So point being, I did do a lot of good work for a lot of these places, and with Sanjay too. Like we're building something very complicated. We are going to launch very soon, and the world will basically see what we've been trying to build in the last few days. It's a one of a kind product. It doesn't exist in the market, and there are a lot of engineering challenges with building something like that. And I think like I've been able to be very generative both on the product side as well as like like on the engineering side as well on how we should like tackle these individual challenges. And it's funny, like, I think that is what he's seen. And I think there's a world that believes that I use a lot of AI tools. The reality is I pay less than $16, overage charges apart from the normal subscription on Cursor. Like I have the least amount of subscription, like $20 a month, and I don't even use that fully. Like for most time I have credits open. Like I can share my screen, I can show what my usage patterns are on Cursor. It's like I barely use it. I mostly use it for brainstorming or if I want to do like a boilerplate thing. But a lot of code is actually written by me because there is no solution out there. Like we have to build our own solutions in house. And I don't like you ask AI, it'll give you generic solutions. And I'm not saying it did not boost productivity, like my time to think has reduced,
Uh-huh.
but effectively I'm still spending the same amount of effort, if not more, because I also have to audit the code it writes. I have to audit the code someone else is vibe coding, right? Because I don't know, like people just vibe code and then, we have to like make sure that the code is correct and, it's like not something that I none of the engineers know what it's written. So there's a lot of more work that has to be done rather than lesser, if not, which I'm sure is not the intended use of these products. But
What a beautiful journey. This journey is more of hard work and dedication of Soham than anything else you can think of. Now, can you share a little bit about the dire financial situation like we can think of? Because a lot of people think even if you're making half of US salary, half of Silicon Valley, half of maybe 200K you said in each company, then that motivated you. Can you share a little bit hint about it?
so I cannot reveal the numbers, but all I would say is that um, we had a pretty massive like undertaking financially, and even when I was making, again, I don't want to say numbers, but let's assume that I was at one company and making 200K. Even then, effectively, I was at net negative because in India, you pay 40% taxes, right? Like I come in the tax bracket where I have to pay every quarter. It's called advanced taxation, right? So every 4 weeks, like it's not something that, hey, I have this 200K in the bank at all time and I can invest them. And then, at the end of the year, I have to pay taxes on it. So I have ability to like offset my financial situations. Like at the end of every quarter, I have to pay taxes that's close to 38 to 40%. I've been diligent with taxes too. Like I've not tried to scuffle money or something like that. And so, like at the end, you can assume like, half of it just like goes in wire transfer charges and taxes. So at the end, I'm probably making what an individual would make in India. But the thing is now I have this month to month, a payment that I have to make. And so it's not even like, I'm not even like in the net positive. I'm like effectively in the net negative. Like I'm making, I can't even like make the amount that, like I have to be paying back to someone. And so,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, last question. Now, a lot of people out there are inspired by you to be overemployed. What advice would you give them? How would you say that if, how would you say to the world, to the hardworking software engineers out there, what they should do to make more money out there, make more impact, and be the next Soham Parekh in terms of hard work and dedication and focus instead of a scam?
So I think like at the end of the day, what you want to build is skills for the longer duration, right? Like you could be working at 10 places or 5 places, but if you're like not learning much or if you don't have time to learn much, then eventually it's going to become a problem. So I think the only two things I would say is that obviously, keep time for you to be able to learn things on the side. If you're able to do that while working, that's awesome. But if not, then, like I think it's important for you to have some time where you can keep up with the industry because it's changing very rapidly and you don't want to be left behind. And the second thing is, just be candid about it. I think people are okay with like I think the way founders think is they care about work getting done at the end of the day. So as long as that is true, I don't think people will have any problem as long as you're like candid about it. Like obviously if you have hidden this and it comes out, then they are responsible, like I said, to answer to other engineers on the team, right? And if they are okay with one engineer doing this, then they have to be okay with or open to at least the risk that someone else will also come up and they can say, oh, this person already did that, whatever, right? And so I think that is another thing, like just be candid about it. I don't think people talk think about it as drastically bad as it's set out to be. And I think it's not bad to think about like financial independence in general. Like I'm not in that situation. I'm like I had different reasons, but yeah, that's all I had to say. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I think it was awesome to get a platform to actually say my side of the story. I don't think like I've been able to like be as open about it as even in the more recent TVPN appearances that I did, just because we had like time constraints. But yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out and being very patient with this, giving me an entire hour to talk. And yeah, I hope that this answers to a lot of questions people have about me. But I'm also happy to answer to any other questions that people might have. Um,
Thank you so much, Soham, for an incredible chat. I hope this video inspires that there's more need of focused engineers than AI-driven engineers. There's no more need of engineers who care about their work, they love what they do, they dig deep into whatever they're doing instead of finding the ways of scamming others, which they should not be promoted to, and which is someone who you are not. Again, thank you again. Your Twitter is real Soham Parekh. People want to follow you, they can. And thank you so much for watching.